All right, welcome everybody. My name is Brad Waldschmidt. I'm an engineer working with the Nashville Department of Transportation on the Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program. And tonight we're here to talk about October Woods Drive. I'm going to pause and let my colleague Jordan introduce himself. Jordan?
Hello, I'm Jordan Lipsy. I work alongside with Brad Walshmith here that is hosting the meeting tonight.
Excellent. Thank you. So I do want to say, I appreciate the patience with your neighborhood and with the street, with the winter conditions and the road conditions. We felt like it was better to just have this as a virtual only meeting. We are going to get to this part later in the meeting, but I do want this group to know there will be an opportunity for a second meeting. And that second meeting can absolutely have an in-person option, which is what this one was supposed to be tonight. So I just want to let the group know that you do have an opportunity for a second meeting uh, in the coming months after this one. Again, we'll get to that later in the presentation, but just given that there was supposed to be an in-person and with the winter conditions didn't really work out, just want to kind of preview and let the group know that. What we'd like to do is go through about a 10 or 15 minute presentation and talk about what traffic calming is, how October Woods Drive was selected, some of the options we have to slow vehicles, and they present a concept design, which is sort of just the first draft of what a traffic calming design on October Woods Drive could look like. So that's kind of what we're going to do. And then we're going to leave plenty of time at the end for comments or for questions. We can have some discussion. Happy to do that at the end after the 10 or 15-minute presentation. So at that time, we're going to ask for everyone, if you have a comment or question, to do it in one of two ways. One is if you could wait till the end after our presentation, you can come off of mute, you can raise your hand virtually. I think that's an option here. And we can kind of just, you can actually speak and have some just comments or questions. Another option is in the bottom right corner of hopefully the WebEx screen you're looking at, there should be a chat option. Feel free to provide comments or questions in that chat box whenever you'd like. We may not get to them until after the presentation, but those are the two options you have for the comments. So given that, we'll go ahead and get going. Jordan, I'm going to share my screen. I just want to confirm, make sure the technology is working. Can you see the title screen, Jordan?
Yes, I can.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to assume everybody on the call can then. So thank you for that. So what is traffic calming? Well, the Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program is focusing on residential streets, and we are looking at ways to look at physical solutions that are going to encourage lower vehicle speeds along a street. So that's what we're looking at in the program. We like to refer to the three E's of traffic calming. The first E is education. This meeting is a great example of education. We are the engineers. We can educate on some traffic calming options to slow vehicle speeds. You are the experts of your street because this is your neighborhood and this is your street. So together we make a really good team to try to find some ways to solve this issue. The second E is enforcement. Enforcing posted speed limits is absolutely part of traffic calming and one of the three E's. However, it's not something the Nashville Department of Transportation, or NDOT, has jurisdiction over. So while enforcement is important, NDOT doesn't have much to do with that, but NDOT does have something that they can do about this 30, which is the engineering, looking at some engineering solutions for what can be done along the street. Um, this is very important. Safety and a vision of zero deaths on our streets. This is one of the reasons why the traffic calming program is funded. If the unfortunate thing of a pedestrian getting hit by a vehicle happens, and that vehicle is traveling 25 miles per hour, that pedestrian has an 89% chance of survival. If you go to the far right on this slide, if that same car is going 45 miles per hour and it hits a pedestrian, that pedestrian only has a 35% chance of survival. Now, we don't want any pedestrians getting hit by any vehicles, but if that unfortunate thing does happen, we really want to be lowering vehicle speeds closer to that 25-mile-per-hour mark to increase the chance of survival for that pedestrian. It's a big reason why the traffic calming program is doing what they're doing. So currently, over 500 streets have been applied for throughout Metro Nashville for traffic calming. There's many people in many streets that seem to have a similar issue of speeding all in their residential neighborhoods. Back in August, 85 streets were chosen, with October Woods Drive being one of those that were chosen. Now, real quick, we like to make sure everyone is familiar with Hub Nashville. Um, if you have anything else that is not traffic calming related, it could be you feel like there need to be more stop signs, or there's a traffic signal that's maybe flashing or completely out of power, or there's tree limbs down from a bad storm. Anything you feel like the city or NDOT needs to know about, we'll make sure everyone is aware of this tool. You can call 311, or you can go to hub.nashville.gov and make your request or observation or complaint that way. So we just like to pause and make sure everyone knows of this tool. But if you have anything about traffic calming, Jordan and I are here for you. We got you. We just like to make sure everyone knows about Hub Nashville for the everything else. So back to October Woods Drive. I mentioned about over 500 streets have been applied for. We collect a lot of data for all 500 streets, and we assign them a score, and that is how we prioritize the streets that need traffic calming. You'll see one of the things we look at is how fast are vehicles going on the street. We also look at things like, are there nearby parks that encourage more pedestrians to want to be walking in the road? And then, has there been any history of pedestrian injuries or pedestrian fatalities on that street? So all the streets that get applied for have this data collected. And again, back in August, top 85 streets, October Woods Drive was one of those 85 streets. So here's some of the data. Just we are talking about October Woods Drive from Old Hickory Boulevard to Red Apple Road. And you can see here that when we collected that speed data, the 85th percentile speed, which is what us traffic engineers usually look at when we're analyzing speed, was 37 miles per hour. That may have been one of the reasons why October Woods Drive kind of got prioritized a little higher with that speed. You can see there are a little over 2,200 vehicles per day. And then again, you are the experts of your street, so you know this, but the width of the pavement varies, where in some spots it's 26 feet, but then in other parts it widens out and there's a lot more pavement on certain parts of October Woods Drive. Again, you all know that, but we just like to document that we kind of have seen that as well. And then again, you all know your neighborhood, but we like maps, so we just want to put this map here. Again, it shows October Woods Drive. We're looking at the segment almost in its entirety, or in its entirety, between Old Hickory and a Red Apple. So we want to talk about some of the toolkit options. What are some things that can be done for traffic calming? One of the more common measures that NDOT implements through the traffic calming program are these speed cushions. They're modular, prefabricated devices. At their highest height, they are 3 inches in height. They're about each one is 6 feet. These are pretty effective, and we'll show a graph in a few slides. Pretty effective at reducing vehicle speeds. You'll see there's a bullet here. It says reduced impact to emergency response vehicles. I want to go to the next slide. Then I want to come back to that one and explain a little more. So another option is speed tables. They look very similar to the speed cushions, except there are no gaps in between. The speed tables extend the entire width of the street. These speed tables are effective at reducing vehicle speeds, all vehicle speeds, passenger vehicles, like what I personally drive, also emergency response vehicles. Think about like ambulances or fire trucks. Speed tables are also effective at slowing them down, and sometimes they may need to get somewhere pretty quickly. So one of the reasons, I'm going to go back a slide now, one of the reasons why NDOT has typically recently been favoring the speed cushions is the wheelbases and the front axle of fire trucks and ambulances are a little wider than I'll call a typical passenger vehicle. And that allows the fire trucks, ambulances to actually straddle a speed cushion. Now, their back tires usually have extra tires back there because of all that weight. So they may still go up on the kind of the side parts of the cushions that are sort of ramping on the side up. So those may actually hit the speed cushion, but compared to the speed table, the speed cushion does have a little less of an impact to those emergency vehicles when compared to the speed table. Just wanted to kind of want to talk through that, what that means when we talk about the emergency response vehicles and the speed cushions. So I mentioned NDOT has collected some data. What we're seeing is these speed cushions are effective at reducing speeds. The before and after speed collections that have been done on a few streets, we are seeing a reduction. So we're seeing things like speed cushions working in terms of the traffic calming program. Another option we have in our toolkit are these radar feedback signs. You may have seen some of these throughout Nashville. They provide a digital readout of the actual speed you're going, and if you're speeding and exceeding the posted speed limit. Some of them flash at you. I believe NDOT uses the ones where the number turns red with the intent of letting people know you're doing something you shouldn't be. We have seen some successes with these, and then some locations where maybe they haven't been as effective. So it really depends on the location for these. We've seen some work, and then a few maybe where it haven't been as effective. So this has been a little bit of a we've seen both sides of it, but there are definitely locations and road conditions where we've seen these can help reduce vehicle speeds for certain conditions, like I mentioned. Another option we have is narrowing with pavement markings. If you look at both of these photos, there used to not be any of those white lines on the edge of the street. So the road just seemed a little wider, maybe a little more inviting for people, motorists that wanted to drive faster. Adding those white lines creates the visual of it being a narrower road, even though we haven't done anything to the pavement. Adding those white lines does make the road feel a little narrow. It can and does have an impact to vehicles and the speeds they're traveling. Maybe not as much as something like a speed cushion, but we have seen the narrowing effect help reduce vehicle speeds either by itself or in conjunction with speed cushions. So that's something that's a toolkit as well. We also have something called on the left photo, these bulb outs where sometimes at intersections we can not only do some pavement marking work, but add those white flex posts or bollards to kind of create this vertical visual of, again, just a narrower area for cars that can help with traffic calming. The photo on the right is something called a chicane, where vehicles must turn their steering wheel kind of back and forth to stay in the travel lane. That's turning of the steering wheel has a natural speed reduction. So we've also seen a few streets where that is a possibility as well. Then lastly, in the toolkit, we have these neighborhood traffic circles. They're similar to roundabouts, but much smaller. NDOT, the traffic calming program will not widen pavement. It won't take anyone's right away. So if there are really large intersections where a circle can fit kind of where the intersection, how it is today, that's something we can look at. We do have to make sure large vehicles like school buses can get around them and circulate. Sometimes that can be a constraint, but just please know that a traffic circle is an option in the toolkit as well. So we just want to present a concept design of what traffic calming in October Woods Drive could look like. This is not the final answer. We just like to put something in front of you to kind of demonstrate what it could be like and also to elicit some feedback or comments. So not final, but we want to talk through it real quick. Each spot where you can see a yellow trapezoid with a C in it would be a location where a set of speed cushions would be designed based on this concept design. And so if I count between the stop sign at Red Apple all the way to the traffic signal at Old Hickory, I believe if my math is right, I'm counting 8 different locations. So this concept design is showing there'd be 8 locations of speed cushions along October Woods Drive. Now, the 8, that's not a magic number, but what we try to do is we don't want to put these speed cushions too close together, or it's going to feel sort of like a grocery store parking lot, and that's not what we want the street to be like. But we also don't want to space them too far apart, or the motorists that still want to speed, unfortunately, may have a longer distance to still pick up that speed. So we really look at that spacing or distance between each speed cushion. And so the distance of the street is what appears to have arrived us at 8 locations for speed cushions. We can absolutely come back to this slide during the Q&A or the comments, but this is just an example of what something like that could possibly look like. A few more slides, but again, during Q&A, we can come back to this one. So I want to talk through the process. We are here in that kind of red colored part neighborhood meeting. This is the first meeting. Again, it was supposed to be hybrid. We are supposed to have an option in person at Cane Ridge Community Club along with the WebEx option, the weather and the road conditions. This is just only virtual. No one's at the Cane Ridge Community Club for the meeting. So our next step after this meeting is going to be to actually prepare a final design. That concept design, I'm going to go back to it real quick. This doesn't show a lot of detail. One of our action items at NDOT after this meeting tonight is going to be to prepare a much more detailed design with multiple sheets, zoomed in way more, and actually showing exactly whose front yards and property we're proposing each set of speed cushions. Just a lot more level of detail so everyone can understand it. That's what that design, what that next piece is going to be. Now, after we have a design ready, we do give streets and neighborhoods two different options, and it's at the sole discretion of you all, the neighborhood and the property owners along the street. One option is once the design's ready, we can just go straight to voting and straight to ballot, and we can talk about that in a minute. But we can go put the design up on the website. The mailer ballots will get sent to all the residential property owners along October Woods Drive. The voting will open, and the website that you'll be taken to in the mailer to go vote will have the design, the PDF of the design that you can actually review before you vote so you know what you're voting on. We're going to go through that ballot and voting process in just a minute. I think it's the next slide. The other option is we're still going to prepare the design. We got to do some more site visits and field measurements on your street. That's going to happen either way, part of our design. The second option is once the design is ready, but before the ballot and the voting, we have a second meeting. And it will be very similar to this meeting, except we will have that final design. We're going to go through, instead of talking about this concept design like we are here, we would talk through the more detailed, zoomed in design, answer questions and comments. That meeting could be a hybrid meeting with the in-person option if the neighborhood would like. So that's where you see that second neighborhood meeting if needed. And then after that, then we would go to that ballot where there's the website, the voting. The design would still be up on that web page, but we would have had that second meeting. So before we adjourn later tonight after the comments and Q&A and discussion, we want to make sure we understand what the neighborhood we're like, and we're going to accommodate that, whatever you all want to do. So real quick, I do want to make sure everyone understands that at some point, even if it's after a future second meeting we have, this traffic calming design will go to a vote or a ballot. What NDOT does is sends mailer ballots to each residential property owner who has property touching October Woods Drive. And that will take you to a website where you can put your name, your address, a secret code that each mailer has a different secret code. And you're going to get the chance to vote. Yes, you want this traffic calming design to be built on October Woods Drive. Or you can vote, no, I do not want this traffic calming design to be built. And the voting period will be open for 6 weeks. And at the end of that, NDOT will tally up the votes. And if 2/3 or 66% of the people that vote yes, then the traffic calming will happen on your street. But if that threshold of all the people that vote, if that 66% threshold is not met, then the traffic calming design would not happen. We would coordinate again with the council member and with your neighborhood lead to kind of talk about next steps and maybe some other things that we could still do, but it wouldn't be to the extent of the design. Again, we can absolutely have some Q&A or answer questions about this process. Just kind of wanted to make sure people understood in the future what sort of the voting opportunity the property owners along October Woods will have. This is just a visual that shows if the properties that are highlighted in yellow are essentially the properties that will have the ability to vote. A few things. Some of those properties kind of have odd shapes. I believe they may be the HOA common areas. Those HOA common areas do not get a vote. They're not really a residential. There's no dwelling on them, so those don't get a vote. And then we also businesses do not vote. So I want to make sure we point out there at the intersection, the signal of Old Hickory and October Woods, we do have a few parcels highlighted there. They did receive mailers for this meeting. We like to make sure that people are invited to be informed. But when it comes time for the voting, businesses do not get a vote. So those businesses right there on the corner at the signal would not actually get a vote. It would only be the residential property owners along the street. So I just wanted to speak to that graphic a little bit. Again, my name is Brad Waldschmidt. Really appreciate you listening to us during this presentation. I'd like to pause and welcome everybody to either put questions in the chat, which Jordan, my colleague, can monitor, or people can come off of mute if they'd like. I'll start with Jordan. Jordan, have we had any comments or questions so far in the chat box?
Whenever you were discussing the speed cushions and speed tables, there was one question that asked, will that also allow trucks to still go fast on the cushion? Which I assume they may be talking about the spaces in between the speed cushions.
Gotcha. So
That was me. Hello, everybody. This is Councilmember Antoinette Lee. Because of how you explained it, I was wondering then if we have lots of cars, lots of trucks or vehicles that are a little larger than your regular car, will they still have that same advantage that the emergency vehicles have, or will the cushions interrupt their speed? And if not, then wouldn't it be better for the tables?
Gotcha. Councilmember Lee, first of all, thank you for joining. It's always wonderful to have you on our meeting, so thank you. Welcome. Secondly, thank you for the question. The answer is I do not know, because I don't know what the width of tires are of, I'll call them, larger trucks. So what I do know is the speed cushions by the vendor that NDOT uses have been designed to allow for emergency vehicles like fire trucks and ambulances to straddle them. I will say it's possible that some other vehicles, perhaps, larger trucks or delivery vehicles, may also have a similar width. I'm just not sure. But we do typically prefer the cushions over the tables just for that emergency vehicle response benefit. So I think your point is valid, and it's a maybe, but NDOT still prefers the cushions because of what it can do to improve emergency response times.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Jordan. But again, we'll allow anybody to come off of mute here in a moment. But Jordan, I want to make sure we get through any questions or comments. Anything else in the chat?
That was the only question in the chat.
Okay, well then, yeah, happy to open it up if other people have any questions or comments. If you want to come off of mute.
So we recently within our neighborhood, this is Andrew. We've just seen the speed limit drop from 30 to 25. I didn't know if that was part of what this is going on, or is that just Metro trying to? I know Metro was looking into lowering all neighborhood speeds, but we also have speed like this on the streets. It still says 30. So I didn't know if you could speak to that or not.
Yeah. So Andrew, I appreciate you talking about that. So first of all, I think we have seen a few other streets where the speed limit has been dropped from 30 to 25, but those pavement markings still read 30. Is that kind of what you were talking about on that part, Andrew?
Correct.
Okay. I have seen that in a few other spots. We can pass that along to NDOT. That also could be another opportunity. I'm trying to go to the slide. That could also be another opportunity where you could submit a request to NDOT to maybe have those 30s on the pavement markings either removed or replaced with a 2.5. But in addition to that, we can also reach out to NDOT and inquire about that. Regarding the question about the lowering from 30 to 25, I would say that did not have anything to do with the neighborhood street traffic calming program. But like the traffic calming program is here to improve safety and really fulfill this vision of zero street deaths on our street, I believe the NDOT, the Metro Nashville decision to lower the speed limits from 30 to 25 on many streets, including October Woods Drive, is for a similar reason, just to really try to do anything we can to reduce these vehicle speeds. Again, lowering a posted speed limit, part of that, remember the 3 E's, part of that's the enforcement, right? And we got to there needs to be an effort to also be enforcing the posted speed limits. But at NDOT, we're here. We can provide the engineering as well to maybe do something else for traffic calming. So Andrew, that's kind of a long-winded answer. I wouldn't say the traffic calming program was what caused that speed limit reduction, but what we're doing with traffic calming, which is really focused on this slide here, probably has a lot of the reasons why the 30 got dropped to 25 for this slide as well.
Hi, Brad. This is Angeline Dungy. I have a question. I'm actually on Red Apple, but because we connect so much to October Woods, uh, I wanted to ask: Is there would we have to do our own request for a traffic calming study? Because a lot of times, they come off of October Woods and they can fly all the way down, Red Apple, and vice versa. They come off of Old Hickory Boulevard where Red Apple connects and fly down to October Woods. So we're also in desperate need of, we were hoping that there's some kind of way we could be considered into this same study because we're so connected, or would we have to request our own?
Right. Thank you very much for the question. NDOT does look at traffic calming on a street by street basis. So since this application was for October Woods Drive, that is all that we're studying and considering as part of this project. So if there was a traffic calming interest, say between Old Hickory Boulevard and October Woods along Red Apple Road, that would need to be a separate application and a separate project than what we're doing here.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
So I'm the person that originally applied with the application, and I hear two things. One, I won't probably get to vote, even though I did the application, which I can somewhat understand. It didn't affect my property per se, but I'm on the HOA board, and so you can speak to that a little bit if you want to. And my original application before it was all online was October Woods through Red Apple, that all the way through into Old Hickory Boulevard. That was the original application, like submitted 4 or 5 years ago.
Gotcha. So yeah, and I'm seeing that we do have Red Apple Road as a street that's been applied for, but just hasn't yet been selected. So that means that we would have collected separate data for Red Apple, and kind of going back to that, apologies here. We looked at all the data, and October Woods Drive had the data to support it being selected back in August, but Red Apple Road did not have the data to also be selected in that 85 streets we mentioned. So that was the reason why Red Apple has not yet been selected. But yeah, Andrew, I am seeing that we do have that as part of the application you submitted. It's a separate street, so it's considered a separate project since NDOT views this as a street by street basis.
All right, thanks for the explanation.
And
as
then,
an application, I would still not get to vote. Is that correct? Because it's still not on that street.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we in fact the application, it's been changed in I think in the recent year, and now at least one person on the application must live on the street. But yeah, the HOA is absolutely able to help communicate, inform, publicize, make sure people are aware of what this is. But yeah, NDOT only allows voters who are residential property owners along the street we're looking at. So October Woods Drive is the only, if you don't have property touching October Woods Drive, you'd not be someone who'd be voting on the traffic calming on October Woods Drive.
All right, thanks for the explanation.
Certainly.
Brad, we do have a question in the chat. It asks, will we know when the mailers go out or the HOA?
Right. So I think if we leave this meeting and the neighborhood does not want a second meeting, then we could give you a timetable for when the ballot and voting mailers would go out. However, if the neighborhood does want a second meeting, we will prepare the final design, and then similar to how this first meeting got scheduled, we'll send a similar scheduling link to, I guess it may have been you, Andrew, or the HOA, to actually get the second meeting scheduled. And then at that second meeting, we will be able to give everyone who's joining that meeting a very good short time frame after that second meeting for when the ballot mailers will go out. Typically, that voting will start 2 to 3 weeks after a second meeting, if that's what the neighborhood desires. So I think that's probably the best answer I can give as far as time frame.
I don't know if you all can see hands or not. I had my hand up, so I'll put it back. Thank you, Ms. Eller. I guess asked the same thing that I was going to ask about. If we were going to know when the ballots were going out, because what those in the neighborhood would need to do is organize to let those know who are touching that road, that what we want, and to make sure that everybody knows that it's coming in case some of those folks aren't on the call. But my question to you is, you said we would get to vote. So are we voting on two things? Are we first voting on what type of traffic calming we are wanting? And then are we voting on if we are going to have it or not? Or are you all going to look at things and assign which one we would get, and then we would only be voting on if the community wanted it or not?
Yeah, thank you for the question, council member. And just at the risk of over communicating, there's no voting tonight on the traffic calming. Just want to make sure we're saying that clearly. What we do want to get is, this is a concept design here that we're sharing with the neighborhood to get comments, what people like, what maybe people don't like, and then we will then move to finalizing a design, a very specific and detailed traffic calming design. If it's something like this, it would be where exactly speed cushions, and if we need to add any pavement markings, things like that. That very detailed design would be what would be voted on. And if the neighborhood would like, after the design is ready, but before the voting, there can be a second meeting, and that second meeting can be a hybrid with an in-person option like tonight was supposed to be. And to kind of where we can talk through and answer questions about the design. But ultimately, the voting will be on a very specific traffic calming design along October Woods Drive. And so if the vote is yes, that specific traffic calming design would happen. But if the result is no, then that specific traffic calming design would not happen. And we would coordinate with the HOA lead and you, council member, on maybe some alternative things that aren't as things on the road.
Okay, thank you. You answered the first question. The second one is a little in the gray area, I guess. So let me put it this way. Will the community have input on what type of traffic calming it is going to be? I heard you say it's going to be a specific type, and I think you all were going to make that plan. But I'm kind of feeling that I might just see white lines go down, which will narrow it, which will not help us much. So is the community going to have input on what type they would like to see?
That's what one of the purposes of this meeting we're in right here is for.
All right, so y'all need to speak up and say.
That's right. Yeah, we are proposing what's on the screen here. This is just an idea that we have, but we want to hear from the people on this meeting. Number one, a design could look like this, approximately 8 locations along October Woods Drive of speed cushions. That's what it could look like, but we could also look at something different, that's what we want to hear from people right now.
Brad, regarding the vote, is everybody all equal, or is are some of the renters, do they get a chance to vote, or does that go to the landlords of the homes that are renting out? How does that going to work out?
Thank you for asking that. The voting is only The voters are only the residential property owners. So if there are renters, then we go through Metro parcel records and send the mailers for the meetings and for the voting to the owner address. And so if there's a different owner address than what the property address is, we're sending them to the owner address. So that could be a landlord, that could be any sort of corporation, anything like that. Those are who the mailers get sent to. So renters that are living but renting in a property along October Woods would not be voting.
Thank you.
Brad, there's a question in chat. It says we also have ATVs on the road with minors who are operating them. How will the cushions affect those vehicles?
Yeah, I will be honest. This is one of the first times I've been asked about ATVs on a street, so I don't have a great answer because I think this is the first time I've been asked that. I don't know what the width of an ATV is from outside of tire to outside of tire. Usually we try to design those gaps between the speed cushions so that, vehicles, even ATVs perhaps couldn't, shoot the gap and get in between. That being said, I'm not certain about ATVs. That's a very good question. I do not have a good answer for you about the ATVs this evening.
Well, I'm sorry, this is Lisa Smoot, and I'm on the HOA board for October Woods, and we've had to address the ATVs and dirt bikes with the police, and they're actually not legal on the street. So, I mean, to me, that really doesn't have anything to do with the speed bumps, because if they're out there riding, they need to get a ticket.
I see. Okay. Well, I see what you mean. Well, that's still the best answer I can give you about the impact speed cushions would have, but sounds like that may be a separate topic as well based on what you just said. So, okay.
Yes. Oh, and I'm in favor of the speed cushions. If you need people to vote, I'm all for it. You've got two votes for it.
Okay, appreciate those comments. Jordan, can you let me know, have there been some hand raised? With my screens, I'm not able to see hand raised as well.
I'm not able to see, I don't think, but I do have more questions in the chat. One of the questions is, could you provide the HOA board a copy of the slide from this presentation that shows a copy of the ballot that gets mailed out? They were saying that they could post it on their Facebook page for awareness.
I think that'd be fine. We could do a few things. We could provide the neighborhood applicant with a PDF of this of this full presentation here, which would include this concept design. We could send that, Andrew, I think we've been coordinating with you. We could send this presentation #1 for the meeting to you all. Also, just so everybody knows, we do record all these meetings, and usually within about 7 calendar days, all of these videos are updated or uploaded to the NDOT YouTube webpage. So if there's anybody who is not able to join tonight's meeting, but they may want to be able to get caught up and know this entire meeting we're in right here will be available on YouTube, usually within 7 calendar days. Well, if you go to the YouTube and search for NDOT, there are many, many traffic calming videos. You'll just want to search for the October Woods Drive one, but that'll be another opportunity for people to get caught up if people are interested.
I'm going to say that I like the cushions. I've drove over those several times. For people that haven't, this is over on, like, was it Culberson? They have these as you go into Shelby Park. They don't seem that abrasive. I think there's a few there's a neighborhood off Haywood Lane. I think there's some of these cushions that I've seen these. Was it Huntington Drive? There's a bunch of them. So I either went this or I like the traffic circles, is my opinion, but this would be maybe my #1, and then 2 would be traffic circles, because they don't, they're not as, like, you don't have to, like, go over them. It wouldn't feel that abrasive, but the only thing about circles, I believe, is that it wouldn't stop speeding. It would just push people off into the shoulders more. And I will say, based on what Antoinette kind of said, we in October Woods already have the narrowing lines. It's a little bit of history of October Woods. Peggy, our previous president, tried to get calming stuff happen. I think NDOT came out, or at the time it was just the Public Works, did pavement markings to kind of lower speed limits, hopefully. And then they did the narrowing. They tried to put striping on the shoulders more to kind of narrow it, and that didn't seem to do anything. So it'd have to be, to me, either the cushion or the circles.
Right. So Andrew, and that we could take a look at some circles. Usually we have to make sure a school bus, that's usually the design vehicle we look for, can get around them. A lot of times the intersections aren't large enough to do that. We can take a look at some CAD software we have to see if that'll fit, but if not, then speed cushions, would be something for sure, like we've presented. And one thing, Andrew just mentioned a few different locations. I think I heard Culbertson Road. I think I heard the entrance to Shelby Park, perhaps Huntington Parkway. I like to make sure everyone knows that we have been also evaluating different lengths of speed cushions. And so, the Culbertson Road speed cushions are a little shorter in length. It's very likely that speed cushions that would be proposed on October Woods Drive would be more similar to Huntington Parkway as far as the actual length of each one. So I just wanted to provide that context in case anyone wants to actually drive any to see what they're like. The ones we would propose might be more similar to Huntington Parkway.
I also mentioned that it looks like the way you've got the concept is you're trying to provide a cushion before each street or each major street to kind of calm people down. I didn't know if there's a certain distance you have between, or is that more in the detailed design?
So I
That's just
think,
kind of my observation.
yeah, I think your observation may be somewhat coincidental with where the locations landed on this concept design. So we don't necessarily try to put them at each and every street. What we do look at is we start with a spacing, let's say maybe on average 400 feet. That's not we have a range. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little less, but we try to generally start with a distance of 400 feet between each speed cushion. Again, too close, it's going to feel like a grocery store parking lot. Too far away, the motorists that still want to speed, unfortunately, have that longer distance to pick up more speed. So we're also trying to make sure we don't put speed cushions right in the middle of an intersection. And we also work to not propose speed cushions right in front of someone's residential driveway. We try to make sure there's certain spacing away from driveways for cars turning in and out. So that's sort of what has landed us in this concept design that we've presented. Yeah, Andrew, it does kind of seem like we've almost gone every intersection gets one. That wasn't the intent, but it sort of has worked out that way. And after tonight's meeting, one of our action items at NDOT, it will be to go out on site and do another site visit out here, perform some measurements, and really refine the locations so that when we do prepare the final design, this will be zoomed in much, much more. You'll be able to see exactly whose front yards we're proposing these to make sure everyone kind of understands what's being proposed for the vote in the future.
Thanks. Something else to consider on the opposite side of the Dollar General is there's been talk of development there that may move that first cushion back farther or whatever. And the way they have, it's not definite. We don't know what's going to happen, but they pushed their entrance drive. It was supposed to be a possible gas station almost back as far as possible. So it would possibly push it. There's like, if you get out here on the site, there will be this concrete drain or ditch, and it's pushed back almost against that as far as possible. So it's farther than the entrance of the Dollar General. That may be something to consider, just to give you an FYI, if that thing has to get moved around, because that parcel is a little bit bigger than the Dollar General.
Right. Yeah, and that's something we'll look at when we do our detailed site visit in the coming weeks. Any traffic calming we do will certainly be west of that Dollar General driveway, perhaps kind of close to that culvert or drainage ditch that kind of flows downward on the north side of the street. That's kind of where we'll probably start looking. So still east of Craftwood Drive, but definitely west of the Dollar General driveway. So far, this has been really good discussion and questions. I've heard a few positive feelings about the speed cushions. I want to make sure we have any other comments if people want to share, but we also want to make sure we understand if there is a desire to either skip the second meeting or to definitely have a second meeting in the future once a design is ready.
This is Lisa Smoot. I think a second meeting once the design is ready, so we all know. That's just my 2 cents.
Hey, yeah, this is Marquez Williams. I'm on the HOA board as well. I believe that we should have a second meeting just so we can get point of clarity and we can all kind of bridge our ideas together once the design is ready as well.
That sounds great. I mean, based on the feedback so far, I think we should. Well, we will NDOT on behalf of NDOT. We will plan on the second meeting. So knowing that, let's go back to this time frame. After tonight's meeting, we will prepare a more detailed and refined traffic calming design. If I had to guess, it'll look very similar to this, but it'll be zoomed in and on more sheets. And then once that design is ready, it may take a couple months. We are working on 85 streets altogether, so it may take a few months to have that design ready. Once it is ready, we would reach out to the lead applicant, I believe, Andrew, that may be you, to get a second meeting scheduled. And just like we did the first time, we will work to get that second meeting scheduled, a date, a time. If we want to have it at the Cane Ridge Community Club, we will do that. Hopefully there will not be winter weather in the springtime, and we can have a similar, there'll be a meeting like this, but there will be an in-person option at Cane Ridge Community Club. We'll have that detailed design ready. Happy to do that. That's what we're going to plan on for October Woods Drive.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think we may get to do some better outreach. I know there's a few residents that are more the in-person type. And I think because of the weather and some of the situations that I think what we did this, we moved forward. I'm glad we can do that. But I think we kind of owe it to them since we tried to plan this on an in-person and we're not able to do it and still try to keep a schedule.
Right.
I'm glad to hear that we can do this in-person second meeting.
Yeah, we've seen different streets and neighborhoods have different preferences, but it makes a lot of sense based on what I've heard that a second meeting, that's what we're going to plan on. So the action item is on NDOT, us to prepare that final design, and once it's ready, again, the lead applicant, I guess Andrew, it might be you, the NDOT will reach out to schedule that maybe a few months from now. We'll have a second meeting similar, and then after that second meeting, after we talk through the final design, shortly within a few weeks of that second meeting being concluded, that's when that balloting voting will go out and begin the 6-week voting period. That's what everybody can expect. And again, happy to send a PDF of this presentation to the lead applicant. And also within 7 calendar days or so, this video, this recorded meeting should be on the NDOT YouTube page. It's another resource that members of the community here can share with others in the neighborhood to make sure people are informed who are interested. We have plenty more time. I mean, I want to make sure we address any other comments or questions. Does anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I do. This is Marquez again. Once the project or if the project is approved, how long will it take for a start date to completion?
Yeah, thank you very much for asking that. And Marquez, I have some good news and some bad news to answer. The good news is we've seen this traffic calming program be so popular and so successful, and Metro is really funding a lot of traffic calming projects because of that Vision Zero and safety. We're seeing a lot of streets get yes votes. We're seeing a lot of successes. The downside is the contractors getting overwhelmed and getting a lot of work in their queue. And just like a lot of industries right now, there's a lot on their plate. So right now, once a vote yes, if a yes vote happens, we're typically seeing 8 to 10 months for that traffic calming to get constructed. And it may even take a little longer than that. But what I can tell you is NDOT is very aware of that time frame and taking action to try to find other methods to expedite that process, to shorten that time. So that's the realistic answer. There's a lot of traffic calming. It's loading up the contractors a lot. That's the cause for that 8 to 10 month, maybe even a little longer. But NDOT's looking at ways to shorten that so that if there's yes votes, they can get these things implemented sooner. So that's the very long answer to your question, Marquez.
Hey, Brad. This is Alfred Eller from the board as well. Quick question for you. What type of pushback or what are the negative votes toward the traffic cushions? What are the pushbacks or the no votes that you get? What are the reasonings behind that? So maybe we can help educate and be able to combat those pushbacks.
Yeah, Alfred, thank you very much for the question, and I'll give you two answers. The first answer is when the voting happens, it is just a yes or no. We don't really necessarily provide the yes because ... or the no because ... We don't give those options. So when we get the votes, it's truly kind of like a typical like government election. It's a yes or no, and that's kind of it. So we don't have necessarily the data for when the no votes come in, like what's prompting that no vote. Now, we have led many traffic calming meetings as part of the program. So I can kind of give you some thoughts based on meetings where some people are not have different opinions. I've learned some people just don't want any traffic calming on a street, and that's their right to have their opinion. Some people don't want to drive over something like a speed cushion, and that's their opinion. That's totally fine. We do think that speed cushions are effective at reducing vehicle speeds, but we also know that some people may not want them. That's why NDOT allows the voting process to kind of have their say. We've heard a few concerns or complaints about what speed cushions can do to vehicles. We haven't seen, as far as repairs, we haven't seen any data that supports that speed cushions cause that with cars, and nor have we. I don't think NDOT's really gotten any pub requests, I don't think, about that. So I mean, I guess everyone's got their opinions and they're entitled to that. But those are just an example of some of the, maybe I'll call them negative sentiments that we've heard in other traffic calming meetings. But I think it just comes down to people's preferences. Some people want lower speeds on their residential streets, and each person has a different feeling for what they're willing to do to accomplish that. And so some people are willing to have something like speed cushions to make it happen, and maybe some people aren't. That's kind of the best answer I can give, Alfred. Does that kind of provide a little bit of context?
It does, yes. I'm just trying to figure out, if we have questions or we have concerns, leading up to our second meeting or that vote coming up, how we're able to address those and help educate people. What would you say if you're able to? What's the percentage of voting for yes as far as anytime you've done this? What's your success rate as far as I don't know if you call it a success rate, but how often is it voted for, and how often is it voted against?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Alfred. I'm going to ask, are you able to see a web page I just pulled up on the slide here?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. So if anybody goes to a search engine and searches Nashville traffic calming, this will be the first page. If you click on it, there's a whole lot of information about traffic calming all on this street. And then look, here's our meeting. We're in it now. I know it's not Cambridge Community Club, but here's our meeting. And then there's a whole lot of access links here that can be very informative. Here's the link to the YouTube page, or you can just go on YouTube and search. But Alfred, there's also this view ballot results. Anybody can click on view the ballot results, and all of the streets that have gone through traffic calming and completed their ballots, it's all posted here. So you can see, we don't report how many votes actually happened, but we do report the percentage of the votes and what it was. So it's a whole lot of passes with a few fails in there, but a whole lot of passes. And so I think as far as a a typical average, it really varies. But if anybody wants to go to the website and peruse, there are hundreds of streets with the voting results on there. If anybody wants to take a look and kind of see what the typical results look like.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Very welcome. Great. And Alfred, I'll just add, I guess, to anybody on the call, if there are anybody that have pretty passionate feelings about traffic calming, whether it's in the yes direction or the no direction, I'll just encourage them to really try to make sure they attend that future meeting number 2. That's really going to be the best chance for everyone to kind of hear opinions and really understand the design that we're going to put forth for the vote. So I'd encourage anybody who's really passionate and interested to come, because again, back to those 3 E's, education is one of them, and we want to make sure we're all educating each other before something important like a vote.
I do have a question regarding the after the vote and everything is put in place. Will there be data? Will there be data provided to us to see how had it affected the speed of people, like a percentage, if we could see had it been beneficial and how beneficial had it been?
Right. Thank you very much for the question. And I do understand your question. I'm going to go back a few slides. NDOT has collected some before and after studies, and I think if I understand correctly, you're asking if October Woods Drive could expect a similar before and after study if traffic calming is successful and installed. And what I think my answer is, I would not, I don't want to commit to that. And the reason is NDOT does a few before and after studies to make sure speed cushions are effective, but there's not a commitment to do it on every single street. And so I will say there is a chance that NDOT would perform before and after study in October Woods, or they may not. They may choose some other streets for whatever reason. So that's really the best answer I could give. I definitely don't want to commit to that. I would say it's possible, but it's not part of the policy to go and do an after study on every street. So it's kind of up to NDOT's discretion if they want to do that on a particular street. That's great. Any other questions or comments from the group?
We have one last question, then I'll get off. I know when I have talked to people about needing traffic calming in their area because they have cars that speed through. When you all do the traffic study, how exactly is that done? And this is why I'm asking, because there are some streets that don't have a large volume of cars on it, but when cars do come at night, they speed through and they run off the curve and they hit people's mailboxes and all those type of things. But if you put something to gather information and you look at it, it may not show a high percentage of traffic on there or even any major wrecks where police were called. But still, there are things in there that say we need something because people are in a habit of speeding fast and doing the tricks and stuff on these roads. So how do you do that so that those roads show up as well? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It does, Councilmember. Thank you. I'm going to try
Okay.
to answer 2 questions and see if I cover what you're asking for. The first thing is, how do we collect data such as the speed data? What NDOT does is on any street that's been applied for traffic calming, NDOT's going to go out and do a study for 24 hours of how many cars were on the street, and then what were the speeds on that street. And again, I'm going to go back real quick here. You can see the 85th percentile speed on October Woods Drive when we did that count was 37 miles per hour. they're about a little over 2,200 cars per day. We do this for every street, and we do that by laying out some black tubes across the street that cars can drive over, and the little boxes they're connected to can kind of do the measuring and whatnot to provide not only the counts but the speed. So that's how we go about getting the speed data. Now, I want to answer a second question. How does NDOT prioritize which streets get selected in the traffic calming program? I want to come back to this chart here because I think, council member, in your example, you mentioned a road that maybe has high speeding but has lower volume. Well, you'll see here 70% of each street that gets applied for traffic calming, 70% is based on that count that we get. And you'll see, while 25% of it is how many cars are going on that street, 45% is how fast they're going. So if they're a low volume street, but there's a lot of really high speeding, that still is a pretty good chance to score, especially if those other pie chart pieces are also kind of supporting the need for traffic calming. So that's how NDOT looks at it, to make sure it's just not only high volume, high speeding streets. So that's sort of the two answers. Does that kind of cover what you were wanting to make sure we cover, council member?
It does, especially the one that just looks at the speed and not the volume. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Well, great. Anything else from this group? Well, we really appreciate your time. And again, I'm going to come off of, stop sharing my screen one moment, please. Appreciate everybody participating. Really appreciate everyone's patience. I know this is supposed to be a hybrid with the Cane Ridge Community Club in-person meeting. Due to the weather and the road conditions, we felt like maybe that wasn't appropriate. So we do appreciate everyone's patience and willingness to be on this virtual call. Just to make sure we over communicate, we will send a PDF of the presentation to the lead applicant. This recording will be on the NDOT YouTube page in about 7 days or so. We're going to get to work on a more refined and detailed traffic calming design for October Woods Drive. And then once that's ready, we will reach out to the lead applicant to get a second meeting scheduled. And that second meeting can definitely be a hybrid option with that in-person or that virtual option for that future second meeting. We would expect that second meeting may occur in about 3 months or so. We need the time to prepare the design and then get it scheduled. We'll also send meeting advertisement mailers for that second meeting to the people that live or own property along October Woods Drive. So those are our action items, but we really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us and talk to us this evening.
Appreciate your time, Brad, Jordan. Thank you guys as well.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Stay warm, everyone. Bye-bye.